Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special podcast here on the Fourth Official. Now, joining me this evening on this recording is not one, but two former Grade 1 referees here in the Scottish game. It's a very warm welcome to Steve Conroy and to Des Roache. Evening, gents. Thanks for joining us here on the Fourth Official.
Evening, not a problem.
Not a problem, Gary. Happy to join.
Now, the main reason for getting you gents involved is, unless you've been living under a rock under the last 7 days, once again, the discussion around Scottish refereeing decisions and standards has been everywhere. From Brendan Rodgers' post-match comments after Celtic falling 2-0 to Hearts on Sunday, to comments from Rangers manager Flip Clement after Alan Muir's performance at Ibrox on Saturday, and everything in between from beforehand, from Crawford Allen's stats that came out a week ago with regards to some incorrect VAR calls. It seems that once again, refereeing is under the spotlight here in Scotland, and it's a good time, obviously, to get both of your insights in terms of what your take is on some of the decisions and what's been going on. But I think before we get into the meat and drink of particular incidents, Des, let's just talk a little bit about your background in terms of where you came from and what you're currently seeing with regards to the current crop of referees in Scotland.
So my background's always been involved in professional sport. Prior to becoming a referee, I was an international athlete for a number of years. I was third in Europe and ninth in the world as a 1500-meter athlete. I had to retire due to just numerous surgeries and numerous operations. I was at the time I was professional. I was working with Adidas for a long number of years, and then just like any wee boy in the west of Scotland, I love football. Didn't want to be a referee. Never expected to be a referee, but after playing amateur football for a number of years, and again injuries just coming up, a family friend said to me that I should look to take the exam and sort of see what I was going to do. All things told, few years later, I'm refereeing Scottish Junior Cup finals, and I make Category 1, and I meet guys like Steve. That's pretty much it. And then was involved as a Category 1 official in Scotland and refereeing domestically and thankfully internationally as well.
And obviously, there's a lot of probably misconceptions around particular Scottish referees, and you mentioned there about West Central Scotland and how it's a melting pot and a goldfish bowl, and everyone's got an opinion, whether it's for Bobby Madden, who obviously went down to England to try and avoid that a little bit, and obviously he's becoming a bit more prominent again in the press of late, having his two pence worth with regards to some of the recent decisions. But no matter, we get the impression that Scottish referees are kind of damned if they do and damned if they don't at the moment, is that everyone's got something to say against it, whether it's a conspiracy going one way or just the fact that mistakes are being made, that there doesn't appear to be any sort of kind of common ground.
Well, I think we should probably address it right from the start. I'll say it 100% conviction. Steve will agree with me. There are no conspiracies from current Category 1 referees, pro or against any team, whether that be from Aberdeen, Falkirk, Arbroath, Hamilton, anywhere. If you get to that level of your professionalism, then you have no bias, and there certainly are no conspiracies. Yes, you'll have inconsistencies, which just affects everyday life, but I think it's preposterous to think that there's any actual conspiracies amongst any referees to have any favouritism or bias to any one team in particular or against any team in particular.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we see across with whatever side of the divide that you fall on. Steve, you've been very vocal in terms of since retiring, in terms of where your personal allegiances lay, but that never affected you on the pitch. And I think that's something that's got to be kind of recognised, of the difference of how people can have their own allegiance, but it doesn't actually affect their decision making.
Absolutely. And just a slight correction there, Gary. I resigned rather than retired, but that's a whole different
Well,
kettle
yeah,
of fish.
okay.
But yeah, I've never ended about what team I supported. And to bring it back, what you were talking about before, we all got into refereeing because we all love football. And if you love football, then you support a team. So it's not to think that any one of our referees, Cat 1, Cat 2, guys doing Sunday boys games, don't support a team. Of course we do. But you can support a team and not be biased, and you can support a team and not be a cheat. That is just, and to say otherwise, you're just playing to the gallery. And it's playing to people's own individual audiences. Everybody knows I'm a Celtic supporter, but just to maybe the proof of the pudding, I still get reminded of the Celtic goal I disallowed in a Celtic Rangers game, and the fact that I didn't send off Kyle Lafferty in Celtic Rangers. Now, that wasn't to, and I've heard it from people, that wasn't to even things up. That wasn't to prove that I wasn't biased. That was because I was utterly and absolutely convinced of what I saw at the time. And it was nothing to do with supporting one team or another. And anybody to suggest otherwise is nonsense. Yes, we all support teams, and that's because we all love football.
Yeah, and you're going to get that particularly this side of the world. There's probably statistically there will be more people that will favour an Old Firm team because they're the two biggest clubs, obviously, in the country. And that's obviously leaning into, and you mentioned there, Steve, about playing to the gallery. And I feel certainly the most recent comments from Brendan Rodgers at the weekend following the game at Tynecastle was absolutely about that, trying to stir a reaction from the support that very much lean into that sort of conspiracy type theory to try and build everyone behind his sort of cause, to try and shine a light on terms of what decisions were made at the weekend. And I think to kind of throw John Beaton at the wolves a little bit at the weekend, when really John Beaton as the VAR at the weekend wasn't the decision maker at Hold, and it very much fell on Don Robertson to go back and relook at incidents like Yang's red card and the penalties that were awarded during that game. I think to point the finger at John Beaton was a little bit of kind of mischief making.
I think it was at best it was lazy, and you can take issues slightly about, or it's debatable and discussable who was making the decisions, but he forgets that the Celtic penalty wasn't a penalty either, and for him to argue the toss about Yang, and for the team to put in I was going to say costly, but maybe not for Celtic, an appeal, an absolutely nonsense and puerile appeal, was purely and simply playing to the gallery. What happened at the weekend, I think, was just, it was a disaster for VAR, but nobody was cheating and there was no conspiracies involved. And that doesn't need to be personalised, because it's not just been at the weekend there. We've had, and Des and I have spoke about it since it was first introduced, we've had already a legacy, I think, of VAR failures, and the weekend was just part and parcel of that. It wasn't an indication that anybody is out to get anybody else.